So we've been discussing motivation and energy levels and um, stress levels quite a bit recently, haven't we? Um, and so finding out how to stay the best version of yourself, both at work but also at home, has been a recent ish topic. I mean, an ongoing topic anyway,
Yeah,
but a recent ish topic that we've talked about quite a bit. And I think obviously everyone needs to find their own answer to that. Um, but maybe you want to share what your brain farts are on that subject at the moment, and then I'll see how that might be different for me, or what my take is on that, and then we'll just take it from there.
yeah, that's good. So yeah, I have been struggling a little bit, or had been struggling a little bit for probably February, March, April time. So for
Mm-hmm.
about three months, feeling really drained and unmotivated and down, which is unlike me. Um, and it seemed to have become a little bit of a pattern after over the last 2 or 3 years to have these kind of periods. And I think it was potentially exacerbated by COVID, not surprisingly, with the restrictions that there were in terms of interacting with people. So I have, I think I'll call it a need to meet new people, um, and also do something that's physical and possibly competitive as well. Um, and one of the ways in which I would do that normally, there are a number of ways in which I would do that normally. One of which would be sword fighting. Another one would be live role playing,
Mm-hmm.
which often involves sword fighting for me as well. And then another one would be camping, whether that's camping in tents or camping in a camper van, which I would also do at live role play or sword fighting events. So not being able to do that meant that I don't think I was fulfilling that need, which was causing a bit more of a strain on me. Um, and I'm going away tomorrow to an event, has about 3,000 people. Um, I'll dress up in armor, camping in my camper van, and I will be meeting lots and lots of new people because a live role play event intrinsically is designed for social interaction and often social interaction with people that you might not know yet in real life, if you like. So since COVID restrictions have been lifted, I've now been able to schedule in a number of these events, maybe 6 or 7 of these events. Um, in fact, if you include some of the woodland events that we've been
Mm-hmm.
going on, the 1 day things, then probably you're talking more 15, 16, 17 of these what I call micro events that tend to happen on a weekend. And that has given me something to look forward to, something to organize for, which is a potential goal, and then it gives me something where I'm taken out of my normal environment and away from some of the routine and stresses and strains that there might be in family life or in work life. So it seems to work well for me. And actually, since I've had a number of those events, obviously this is just a correlation rather than an experiment, but since I've had some of these events, it seems to have then changed my mood and I'm now back to a normal, non-stressed, positive Mark. Um, So probably my view is, and you see some people on LinkedIn and some people that I know or have known in the past seem to focus almost 100% of their energies 5, 6, 7 days a week on building a business or maintaining a business.
Mm.
Um, and certainly for me, that would be probably unhealthy for me. Um, and those things that I've described give me that probably mental break, physical break, and also emotional break that I need to recharge.
I think so. I just came back from a weekend um, in the French Alps, meeting loads of new people at a friend's wedding, and I realized once again at the end of a day that it's quite tiring for me. Even though I enjoy it, it's very tiring for me to be interacting socially with people all day and meeting new people. And so if I'm doing only that for a day or for a weekend, I'll be completely exhausted um, when I come back. And I think probably COVID and not having as much practice, if you will, interacting socially with people, um, has exacerbated that a little bit. But it's also because there's now more contrast, because it happens less often. I'm now more aware of those kind of um, shifts in energy, if that makes sense, where I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, I really feel like taking a nap now, even though I've had a really good night's sleep. What's caused me to be really tired? Oh, I spent the whole day talking to new people about stuff that I'm not necessarily interested in. Right. Um, so that's a big energy drain for me, which I'm now aware of and I accept, and that's fine. I just need to plan and manage around it. And I think the weekend before, when we were at the sword fighting event with Stuart and yourself, and some obviously a lot of other people, but I was reflecting that it was quite interesting that even though we spend, well, not quite 5 days a week, but almost 5 days a week interacting with each other in a business context, even then, when we're at a social event like that, we do tend to gravitate towards each other and still want to spend time together, basically. So um, for me, it's quite interesting to see where sort of that balance lies, because people talk about work life balance and say, oh, you shouldn't spend too much time working, etc. And I think that very much depends on whether you enjoy what you do and whether you enjoy your work and whether you
yeah,
enjoy the people that you work with. Um, and I think I would much rather work 5 or 6 days a week um, on something that I'm really passionate about and that gives me a lot of energy, and spend less time on hobbies than be less satisfied about my job but have more time to do extracurricular stuff. Now that's maybe because I'm someone who's very driven and for whom it's very important to achieve stuff in life, and so um, if my job, or my, I don't know if job's the right word, but let's say job for now, isn't giving me as much satisfaction, then that will have a much bigger impact on me, I think, than if I'm just having a job that pays the bills, um, and then I get to do a lot of role playing, or I get to do a lot of sword fighting, or stuff like that. So I think for me the balance that I need to find maybe lies a little bit more in the kind of things that I do, whether it's inside of work or outside of work. And if I don't do enough of those, then my energy levels are gonna drop, which involves a level of organizational stuff, of creative stuff, of playfulness, and those kind of things. And I haven't quite figured out what those ingredients are, but obviously we are searching for them and helping each other find, what's the right balance for each of us. But yeah, that was a little bit rambly, but those are just my my thoughts off of what you said, off the
I
back
mean,
of what you
saying
said.
that, both of us have made choices to leave organizations because they're not fulfilling our needs
Yep.
in some way. And also, I suppose, some of my hobbies, if you like, or interests,
Yep.
like going out into the woodland, sword fighting, um, playing games,
Yep.
I have now earned money from all three of those.
Yeah.
Um, so I have steered, I think, quite strongly the stuff that motivates me and engages me and interests me to trying to do that as part of my job, and
Yep.
I've actively tried to engineer that so that helps. And that, although that's a little bit less so at IQM at the moment, I think
Mm.
partly because of the position of our business.
Yep.
So I have had to, because I've taken on a certain responsibility or certain role, or made a commitment,
Mm.
I've had to do things that aren't kind of optimal for me.
Mm.
Although some of the stuff like the mentoring and the recruitment is more within my kind of area of, let's say, enjoyment
Yep.
um, at, at work. Um, but yeah, I think what's good about the things that we've done is that we have realized that this is really important for us. So we've tried to add that into
Yep.
our systems, if you like, our regular systems, which does take a while because we've got business as usual
Yep.
to kind of manage as well. So that change
Yep.
process um, does take a little while.
And what's interesting, and I'm thinking out loud, I hadn't thought this particular thought yet. I don't think, at least not consciously, is that anytime I talk about what we do and how we do things at IQM to other people who don't know about how we run the company yet, everybody's like, "Oh my god, that sounds amazing! I would love it if where I work, if we were to do things like that." In terms of everything that we do that has to do with team building, with recruitment, but also the whole tension management system and those kind
Yeah,
of things, and the check-ins that we do and all that jazz. Um, and I think that we're always trying to optimize things, and we are rarely satisfied with how things are going, because anything can always be better. You can always find a way to do things better. And I just thought, well, if I'd had to do the same thing, the same role, the same job as I'm doing at IQM now for another company that didn't have all those things, I wouldn't have made it to this point. I would
no,
have said, well, fuck off a while ago, really a while ago. Um, so maybe that's also good to remember every now and then, that yes, we can improve and we're looking to do even better, but we've already managed to achieve something quite exceptional, that's allowed us to get to where we are. And sure, we need to do better if we want to get to where we want to be, because we're really ambitious and we want to have a positive impact in the world, lasting positive impact in the world, right? But it's yeah, I think without having these kind of conversations like what we're talking about now, in terms of what's affecting your motivation, your energy levels, all of those things, quite openly and quite frequently, I think all three of us, between Stuart, yourself, and me, we would have had a minor burnout already. And I know such a thing doesn't exist, but at least a little bit of a more significant drop in motivation and productivity. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think yeah, that was just sort of a side note, not really talking about the actual what's the right balance for you, what's the right balance for me, but I
Yeah.
think it's
I mean, I
relevant.
think that that's an important point. Um, when you are running a business, as we've said before, the
Yeah.
people are the most important part of
Yep.
that business.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you want them to be as productive and motivated as possible, you need to try and understand what motivates each individual.
Yep.
There are things that motivate humans, if you
Yep.
like, fine on a very high level, but as soon as you go down those levels and you're getting to individuals,
Yep.
actually people's needs can be in some areas very, very
Oh,
different.
absolutely.
So how you put in place systems that helps to make everybody motivated and productive is a lot trickier.
Absolutely.
I think you need to have a flexibility.
Yep.
You need to be flexible. You need to have feedback.
Yep.
You need to um, and actually, the challenge, something that makes potentially that even more challenging, is if you're committed to diversity and inclusion,
Yep.
which we are, which theoretically generates even more differences
Yep.
in people. So yeah, that is that is tricky, but also it's achievable. It's achievable to motivate your staff to a higher and higher level, I think, by as long as you keep that in your mind that that is one of your priorities.
So here's a question. Um, how much do you think it helps that within the business we have, let's say, clusters of similar interests? So, for instance, we were, in a meeting earlier on, we were saying, oh, I'm slightly distracted, slightly multitasking, preparing for the event this weekend, right? And three of us were in a similar situation. Um, and I think most of the people in the business can at least relate to that kind of event or that kind of distraction. Um, how much do you think it helps that we're most of us are to a certain extent, geeks or nerds, and so we can empathize with the kind of distraction, if you will, or hobby or recharging moment that we all have. The fact that we talk about video games or role playing games on a relatively frequent basis within the business, because I think that thought just got triggered because of the comment you made about D&I, of course. Um,
I think it does help and helps bind people together quicker if they have this common language or
yep,
understanding. But yes, I would say that it theoretically might be in conflict with diversity and inclusion
yep,
because you might be creating this clique, if you
yep,
like, this group of people that
yep,
have a lot in common with each other, which by
yep,
definition means they may not be as diverse.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
But I think it's in any case, whether you whether you have those similar interests or not, I think talking about them and also talking about them at a leadership level and saying, you know, effectively, I'm also human and I also have hobbies and interests and I get distracted and I
yeah,
get excited about stuff outside of work. I think probably makes it more acceptable for other people in the business to have similar things like that, which is probably a very healthy thing.
I think that that openness. So, for example, we already talked about live role play, which for people that don't know what it is, it's a little bit like playing characters in Lord of the Rings, where you go to a field, you dress up and you play a character, and actually you can have an influence on the story. Your actions can influence the overall story. Now, I've known people that haven't told their friends,
Oh
some of their
yeah,
friends, that they've done that,
yeah, yeah,
and certainly won't tell prospective employees.
yeah,
And um, I've always had the view that, hey, I really enjoy it, so I'm going to tell people about it. And I have actively used it as an example of something I find enjoyable or challenges I've had or achievements
mm,
that I've had in an interview.
yep,
And in the main, people might not completely understand it, but they seem to have acted very positively
yeah,
towards my passion, if you like. It
yeah,
allowed my passion to come out. Um, so I think if you are able to express something that is a little bit different and be open about it, you
mm,
do set the scene for other people with different interests and different passions to also express the things they are passionate about. And I think especially if you have some passions that aren't as mainstream,
yeah,
you're more likely to understand other less mainstream people,
sure,
um, which I think will support that diversity and inclusion within a business. So I think, yeah, I think that helps in a sense if you're geeks and a little bit fringe, because I
yeah.
think you're more likely to have a I think you're more likely to have a higher understanding of others' differences.
And another thing that I thought of, which we tend to do, is we tend to take our hobbies seriously, as in it's not just a distraction, right? You can learn something from sword fighting. You can learn something. You can grow as a person by doing role playing. You can,
Yeah,
um, you know, I don't know, become a better human by sewing costume in whatever. Um, and like the discussion we had yesterday with Dylan about, or which ended up being about Cossack dancing, was it?
yeah,
Cossack traditional dancing, and how do you use those other enjoyable things to have a positive impact in your life, whether it's to learn something or whether it's to relax and recharge your batteries. I don't know if I to me it seems like it's a better approach, but it might seem a little bit extreme to other people that everything in life, or a lot of things that I do have some sort of function, and it
an
and it seems,
objective and goal
yeah,
and
it
reason why
seems,
you want to optimize something.
yeah. And it's like,
Um,
well, it's
and that
fucking
is
take a chill pill, T-Bone. And you're like, no.
that's contrary. Sounds like it's contrary to relaxation,
Yeah, but it's
at
not for
least.
me.
Yeah,
It's not, because if I'm, I noticed it on the weekend as well, where there was um there was this friendly competition between the people at the wedding, the groups at the wedding, to gain a number of points by playing games against um, other groups at the wedding, and we had to choose a team captain, um, and they were supposed to be the point of contact for the groom, to organize the game. And I told one of the guys in our group that they should be the captain, because I don't want to be the captain because I'm always fucking captain. Um, but I do end up organizing stuff naturally. When I find that stuff doesn't get organized efficiently, I'm like, right, how about we do this, 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 and this? And so I ended up in a adjutant role relatively quickly, and I enjoy that. And that's the reason why I decided to go into leadership in the first place, because that's a role that I naturally fall into and that I enjoy and that I get energy from. But it does make me come across as someone who takes everything way too seriously. But that's not my problem. That's everyone else's problem, isn't it? So yeah. Anyway, feel like I don't know if we got sidetracked. We just got on to a different point.
Yeah.
A little bit.